Okay, this video is for flaring brake lines. Just making a double flare, which is required on any automotive brake line application. First, just take your line cutter right here. Make sure it's straight on the line. What you want to do is make one complete revolution. See where your little cutting wheel's tracking. Make sure it's tracking straight on the line. And as you rotate it around, you just turn the knob on the end of it to tighten the cutter on the line a little bit at a time. And in a matter of seconds here, will be cut completely through this 1/4-inch steel line. Next part about your cutting tool is it has this little piece right here that comes off the end of it. This is a reamer, and that will deburr the inside of the line that you just cut. To do that, you just stick the pointed end down into the line, give it a couple of turns, and you're good to go. And then out of your flaring kit, you need to select the proper adapter from your kit to go with it. Now each one of these adapters, they've got a little nipple sticking up off the top right here, and on the other end there's a lip. This lip always needs to be lined up with the brake line when you're putting it in the flaring bar, which I'm about to show you. So you take your brake line right here, and you take your flaring bar, which is this piece right here with multiple holes in it designed to help form the flares, and it clamps onto the line. So the first thing you do is you stick it on the line a little ways. Take that step that's on your flaring adapter and make sure the end of the line is even with it. And then you tighten the nuts on the flaring bar nice and tight. I like to use the bar on the end of the flaring yoke just to get them snugged up. Make sure that line's not going to move, because if that line moves, it will ruin your flare. Alright, and then the next step is you take your little flaring adapter here that we just talked about with the nipple, put the nipple inside the line, stick your flaring yoke, this particular tool right here, onto your flaring bar, making sure the point on the tip of the flaring yoke lines up with the little dimple in the center of the flaring adapter. Then you eyeball it, make sure your little flaring adapter is sitting about even all the way across, and you go and tighten the yoke as tight as you can until it stops moving. And this part is pretty hard to do. It takes some strength, because you're actually making a new end on steel line. So once it stops, bottoms out, will not move anymore. You can loosen your flaring yoke adapter. Take out your flaring adapter, little thing with the nipple on it and the step. Put that back in your kit, and you will have something that should resemble that right. Where'd it go? Right there in the center. How it's kind of dome shaped right now. That's what it should resemble at first, after this step. And now, for the final step with it, what you need to do is take your flaring yoke, place it over the flaring bar, lock it in. This set happens to be a professional set, so it locks in a little more securely than some of the other sets out there. And you center it over the opening in the line, just tighten it down. Make sure it gets good and tight. And then once you get it all the way tightened down, you can take it back apart. And loosen up the nuts on your flaring bar. Which again is going to require some strength because if you've tightened them with the use of this little rod end on the end of the flaring yoke. When you are all done and everything is taken back off, you're going to have an end that looks something like this. It is a 45-degree flare. It's a double flare meant for use on automotive brake lines. And the last part of this process is to take your line nut that you should have put on there before you started any of this, slide it up to meet your flare, and look at the end of it to make sure that your line is not wobbling at all outside of the too much inside the opening of the flare nut. Otherwise it won't give you a perfect seal and you'll have a leak. Now there's other types of brake line flares, and I will show them later, make videos of those. There's a single flare and there's a double flare, or a bubble flare, which the bubble flare is on most imports and many newer General Motors cars. It's the complete opposite of a double flare. The double flare is an inverted flare. The bubble flare looks like a big bubble on the end of the line, basically. And like I said, we'll get into that in another video when I get my tools from work and bring them in here. We'll bring them over here so we can show you how to do that. But after a successful how-to video, I say we do this the Dave's Farm way and enjoy a nice cold brew.